This week on Worldwide Gaming, Ryan talks about robots and Lycans. The AI is so unintelligent that you can easily hide in a corner as the Lycans run at you in a straight line. Lysander becomes a miner.
If you dig around hard enough and risk fatal injury, you might find some real gems. Albeit roughly cut gems that take time before they're polished, but...
And Chase ponders Far Cry's naming conventions.
The next game wasn't called something crazy like Far Cry Evolved Pred 2.5, it was named Far Cry 3.
Hello and welcome to Worldwide Gaming. I'm your host Ryan, and today Chase is taking you back through the now beloved Far Cry series. But not before Lysander takes you through the Steam Early Access hit Darkest Dungeon, and I roll back to the start of the year with my review of the Order 1886. All that and more coming up after the forecast.
Death in Candlewood is a psychological FPS influenced by the work of Edgar Allan Poe and classic horror films. Set in 1940s America, the player explores the town of Candlewood, with mechanics borrowing from many different genres. The game comes out 2015 for PC. Rock is back once again with the upcoming Rock Band 4. Get ready to dust off those plastic instruments and invite some friends over, because this iteration is looking to be the biggest in the franchise. It's releasing at the end of this year for Xbox One and PS4. This tower defense game has players riding the back of a giant colossus. The player must take care of multiple battlegrounds around their colossus by placing towers and shields while enemies attempt to board and penetrate the beast. The game is coming to PC in 2015.
Everyone all right?
Yes.
The Order 1886's setting of an alternate history London is a definite unique point of the game. You play as Sir Galahad, a member of the Knights of the Round Table who, contrary to the stories told previously about them, have replaced their swords and shields with thermite guns and excessive mutton chops. Being a new first-party IP, you can forgive the Order 1886 for a few of its flaws, but the run-of-the-mill cover shooting, overly cinematic moments, and quick-time-reliant sections leave a lot to be desired at times.
About giving up on the ghost there, didn't we? Fancy another rant?
The Order 1886 is a fantastic looking game. Lush vistas, interesting environments, and inspired character models make it visually the most impressive game on either current-gen system. This is actually only true when you aren't running around the dull, dreary streets of London with your merry crew, which is most of the time. You'll mainly be seeing one grey, foggy, or otherwise unimpressive street after another, especially near the start of the game, but thankfully after a couple of hours you'll start to see some variation. One of the standout areas is a section of the game that sees you taken over a Zeppelin in the sky, simultaneously showcasing how beautiful the game can look, and how Ready at Dawn have taken liberty with century-old technology. With such a cinematic visual presentation, the Order 1886 can lead you to some odd moments. The game will often transition between cutscene and game so smoothly that you'll not notice you're in control for an extended period of time, which usually isn't enough to get you killed, but I found it took away and gave me control so frequently that it started to get on my nerves. The Order 1886 relies quite heavily on quick-time event sections, which generally aren't too offensive. However, there are two fights against Lycans within the game that can lean too heavily on the tired mechanic. In these fights you must dodge attacks from the Lycans, which is really easy since there is only a handful of animations, as you use the trigger buttons to do one of two attacks, both of which do little to no damage. This draws out the fight and makes you wish you could skip these sections altogether. It's a shame that a fight against such a scary and epic monster comes down to how well you can mash the square button. In fact, any fight against Lycans in the Order 1886 is not a pleasant experience. When the game is generous enough to allow you to fight them with guns, the AI is so unintelligent that you can easily hide in a corner as the Lycans run at you in a straight line, allowing you to mow them down. The human enemies are more intelligent and will regularly flank you, flush you out with grenades, and use cover effectively, making fighting them a much more satisfying encounter. The cover system is quite rudimentary, allowing you to snap to objects with the press of a button, but with one glaring omission. You can switch cover from side to side by holding a direction and pressing the cover button. However, you can't switch to any cover in front of you easily. To do it, you must exit from your cover entirely and run to the next piece of cover, leaving you exposed while enemies shoot at you until you reach the advanced position. For a game with such a heavy cover-based shooting focus, it's a very odd thing not to include, and seems more like a limitation of the game's engine instead of a purposeful design choice. Most of the weapons you use throughout the game are interesting and unique, explained in-story by a brilliant cameo by Nikola Tesla.
Nikola, how fares your friend Edison these days?
Thomas and I are not on speaking terms. The man is an idiot.
However, you won't encounter the more eccentric ones very often. The flagship weapon of the game, the thermite gun, will shoot clouds of thermite which require you to use the secondary fire of the weapon to ignite the cloud you created. In practice, the gun certainly looks cool, but isn't very useful. You may find yourself sticking to the tried and true assault rifles, pistols and shotguns, since they're easier to find ammo for, which is a shame as there are some awesome weapons to be found. The Order 1886 isn't as terrible as many people will lead you to believe, but it's a game with many trade-offs. The shooting feels good, but the cover mechanics feel incomplete. The quick-time events aren't intrusive or needlessly difficult, but can become tedious at times. And the visuals are about as good as you'll get in any console, even now months after the game's release. It isn't perfect, but what first game of a new series is? I look forward to seeing what the franchise brings us in the future.